Hola chicos, I hope you guys are having a great day. Today we are going to learn or relearn conjugating in the present tense. So go ahead and get ready because we are going to review how to conjugate AR, ER, and IR verbs. Okay, here we go. Let me go ahead and click present for you and we'll get started. So the present tense of regular verbs. Okay, let's start with what they're called. When they're regular verbs in the AR, ER, IR form, they're called infinitives. Did you know that all verbs ending in AR, ER, and IR in Spanish are called infinitive verbs? Well, they are infinitive because there's no time or person attached to the verb. Infinitives are in its purest form, right? Just like in English, the infinitive verbs start with to. For example, to play, jugar, right, and ends in AR, or to write, escribir, which ends in IR. Okay, AR, ER, and IR verbs are in their infinitive form, in their purest form. So AR verbs, you already know the present tense of the AR verbs. These are the endings. You have o, as, a, amos, ais, and an. To conjugate an AR ending verb, first you drop the AR at the end of the verb. So you take your word, whatever word you want to conjugate, drop the AR at the end of it, and add the new ending, one of those endings, according to who is doing the action. Example, hablar, to speak. My sentence is I speak Spanish. So I take the verb hablar, right? It ends in an AR, and I drop the AR and add O for yo, right? I speak. So I change hablar to hablo to make it say I speak Spanish instead of it saying to speak Spanish, okay? Hablar, if I would have not changed hablar with an O at the end, it would say to speak Spanish instead of saying I speak Spanish. Now, what do you think would happen if instead of an O, I added AS? Who would be speaking Spanish? Yeah, that would be tú. Tú hablas español, right? So according to whoever is doing the speaking in this case, you add the ending to make sure you match that subject, okay? So let me just show you a little better. Mirar is to watch, right? To watch TV, mirar televisión. Mirar el partido, to watch the game or the match, mirar. So here are your subject pronouns. You got yo, which is I, tú is you, él is he, ella is she, usted is you but formal, nosotros is we, vosotros is you all but in Spain, ellos is they, ellas is they, the girls, ustedes are you all, you guys. Okay. Now, according to whoever you want to say is watching, you got to drop that AR and add the ending to make it say that that person is watching. So, mirar, if I want to say I watch, I drop the AR and add an O, and that way it will say miro, yo miro, I watch. If you're doing the watching, I want to say you watch, then I drop the AR and add AS. So now it says you watch, miras. If let's say we are doing the watching, right? I drop the AR and add amos, okay? That makes it say we watch, miramos. So we no longer need the nosotros part because the ending tells us that it's we who's watching. So, and that happens to all of these verbs. You do not need the subject pronoun anymore because the ending tells you who is doing the verb. O is yo, AS is tú, amos is nosotros, ais is vosotros. Now, you might have to be a little bit more specific with the A ending or just AN ending because that can be many people. Mira can be he watches, it can be she watches, it can be you watch formal. Miran can be they the guys watch or a group of mixed people, or they the girls watch, or you all watch. For these two, you have to be a little bit more specific and say the pronoun. But for these, I can just say miro and you automatically know I'm talking about me. I watch. So let's talk about some ER verbs. Here are a few ER verb endings that you already know. Okay, you have the verb comer, to eat, beber, to drink, leer, to read. Ver is another way to say mirar, to watch, to look at, to see. Okay, ver. Now, entender is to understand, tener is to have, hacer is to do, The ones with stars are irregular verbs. So we will in the future have videos specifically on these irregular verbs. But these are all verbs that end in ER and they're all in the infinitive form. There's no person to it and there's no time to it. ER verbs, it says the pattern for ER verbs is much like the pattern for AR verbs. The only difference is instead of using a, you use e. So you know how our endings with the A's had A's in it? Well, now our endings with the ER verbs have E's in it. O is still yo. Instead of AS, now it's ES for tú. And instead of an A, it's an E for he or she. Now, instead of amos, now it's emos for we. And they're on. Ace instead of ice and N instead of on. Okay, these are the endings. So now instead of dropping an AR, you're dropping the ER. And instead of adding the AR endings, now you're adding the ER endings because they are ER verbs. And it applies the same way. You gotta watch who is doing the watching in that case, and you would add the ending of whoever's doing the watching. If I'm watching, you're watching, he, she is watching, we're watching, y'all watching in Spain, or they're watching. So whoever's doing the watching, you drop that ER from that verb, and you add the ending to say who's doing it. So let's try the verb in Spanish, comer. Comer is to, yes, to eat, okay? So what if I want to say they eat ice cream? Should I say ellos comer helado? No, you should not say ellos comer helado. You need to change comer, drop that ER, comer, and add the ending for they, which in this case, it's en, okay? So instead of saying ellos comer helado, now you would say ellos comen helado, and you'd be speaking correctly, okay? So if I want to say we eat ice cream, nosotros what? Comemos, yes, comemos helado, okay? Yo como helado. Tú comes helado. Él come helado, right? Vosotros coméis helado, right? Just whoever's doing the eating in this case, okay? You have to change the verb to make sure it says specifically who's doing that verb. Who's the one eating the ice cream? And I'll know that by the ending of your verb, okay? So other ER verbs, let's look at some other ones that you might know. Here's beber, right? It means to drink. Yo bebo, I drink. Tú bebes, you drink. Ella bebe, she drinks. Nosotros bebemos, we drink. Vosotros bebéis, y'all drink in Spain. Ellas beben, they, the girls drink, okay? So just watch the ending of who is doing the verb. That's how you know. Now one more, leer. Let's say you all, the regular y'all, you guys read. What would it be? Would it be leo? No. Would it be for you all, would it be leemos? No, it would not be leemos. It would be leen, right? Ustedes leen. And that's how I know that I'm talking about you guys, right? Leen. The ending en tells me it's either they or you all. And that's why I have to say ustedes. Now, what if I want to say I read? Which one would I pick? Did you say Leo? Yes, it is Leo, okay? The O is for yo, right? And so if I hear the word Leo, someone's talking about or saying, I read. All right, the verb ver. So we talked about ver earlier. Ver means to see, to watch, to look at, etc. Just like mirar, same thing. Ver is to see. You also know the verb ver. It is the same as the other ER verbs except in the yo form. Okay, so the yo is a little bit more special. It's irregular in the yo form, and there will be an arrow to show you the difference. Okay, so I see, veo. You see, ves. He sees, ve. We see, vemos. Y'all see in Spain, veis. They see, ellos ven. Okay. Now, what is so different about veo? What's happening here in the yo form? Can you tell? Yes, there's an extra E in there. Because if I were supposed to take ver and I'm supposed to drop the ER, I should be only left with a V. So technically, if I were to conjugate ver, just like I was conjugating my other verbs, it should say vo, right? Technically, it should say vo, but it's irregular, only in the yo form. So I have to remember that this little verb needs an extra E in there. Instead of just an O, I have to put EO. So instead of saying yo vo, it's yo veo, and that means I see, or I watch, or I look at. Okay, so be careful with there. There's many other verbs that do this, but in this case, I'm only showing you there for now. The pattern for IR verbs is the exact same as the pattern for ER verbs, but except the forms nosotros and vosotros. Those are the only IR forms that actually have I's in them. You know how AR verbs had A in the endings and ER verbs have E in the endings? Well, the IR verbs have E's in the endings, okay? Except nosotros and vosotros. Those two forms actually have an I in them, okay? So instead of using hemos, we will use imos in the nosotros form. Instead of using es, you will use is in the vosotros form. Everything else would be just like an ER verb. So IRs and ERs are pretty much the same, except nosotros and vosotros. So let's try a verb to share. To share is compartir, okay? Compartir, notice it ends in an IR. So what's the rule? I'm supposed to drop the IR and add the ending according to who is sharing, okay? So if I'm sharing, I drop the IR and add an O, easy. If you're sharing, I drop the IR and add ES. Notice that it's an E, not an I. Just like ARs were A's and ERs use E's, well, the IRs actually use E's, okay, no I. He shares, comparte. We share, now look at this, compartimos, there's the I, right? Look at vosotros, compartís, there's the I, but they share, ellas comparten, back to the E. Okay, so that's the only little special thing about the IR verbs, that they are exactly the same forms as the ER verbs. Just make sure that nosotros and vosotros actually use I's in the ending, okay? So muchas gracias, and I hope this helped you understand your conjugations of present tense verbs. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to send me a remind text or ask me anything. Well, email me, however you need it. But just make sure that you understand. If you don't, rewatch this video, send me all your questions, do all your exercise. You will see this is not new stuff. I think you've learned this. I'm pretty sure you learned this in Spanish 1, and we're here to reinforce and help you understand. So I will see you. Hasta luego. Adiós. Ciao.